Something is happening behind the scenes of the amazing digital circus, and this time, it's bigger than just rumors. Early scenes from episode 8 are starting to surface. And while some fans are brushing them off as fake leaks, others are noticing patterns that are way too deliberate to ignore. Because when you line these new images up with what the show has been quietly setting up for weeks, it starts to feel less like coincidence and more like a controlled reveal. Episode 8 isn't just another chapter, it's shaping up to be a turning point. Let's start with the earliest image that caught everyone's attention. A grainy, slightly distorted frame showing Ragatha standing alone inside the main circus office. Not the tent, not an adventure zone, that office. The same exact place where Pomni first realized she was trapped back in the pilot, at first glance. It looks simple, but the longer you stare at it, the more uncomfortable it feels. Ragatha doesn't look confident, she doesn't look hopeful. She looks unsure, almost like she doesn't fully understand where she is yet. And that alone changes everything we think we know about her. Now here's why this matters. That office hasn't been randomly appearing in recent episodes. In episodes 6 and 7, Kane is repeatedly seen inspecting photographs, pausing on images that clearly resemble that same office space. The show never calls attention to it directly. It's subtle, quiet, easy to miss. But the amazing digital circus has never wasted screen time without purpose. When a location keeps reappearing in the background, it's because the story is slowly pulling us toward it. And episode 8 looks like the moment we finally arrive. Then there's another early scene that's been circulating, and this one hit the fandom even harder. Pomni standing at the exit door. Not panicking, not running, just standing there staring at it. And that detail is important. Because in episode 7, the idea of escape stopped being a joke and started feeling real. The show openly explored the possibility of returning to the real world. It asked the question everyone was afraid of asking out loud: what if leaving is actually possible? This image suggests that episode 8 doesn't drop that idea, it pushes it further. A lot of people are asking the same question right now. How do we know any of this is real? And honestly, that's a fair concern. The digital circus fandom has seen fake leaks before, but this time, there's actual evidence backing things up. Reports started popping up that episode 8 files were uploaded early to certain platforms, and shortly after that, Gooseworks herself shared an official early scene, showing Ragatha and Kinger together inside the main circus tent. That confirmation changes the entire conversation because it proves one thing for sure. Real footage is out there. And once you accept that, the other early scenes start to feel a lot more believable. Like the solo shot of Ragatha that's been quietly circulating, no chaos, no jokes, just Ragatha alone looking genuinely worried. At first, it doesn't seem dramatic, but when you place it next to the other images, a pattern starts to form. Ragatha keeps appearing over and over, not as background support, not as comic relief, but as someone central to the story. Episode 8 isn't just about what happens next, it might be about what happened before. That's where things start to get unsettling. Because when fans compared Gooseworks' official image to scenes from the pilot, the similarities were impossible to ignore. Same positioning, same environment, same framing, the only difference was the character. Where Pomni once stood, Ragatha now stands, and that raises a terrifying question. Are we looking at Ragatha's first day in the digital circus? The show has already planted this seed. Back in episode 2, Kinger briefly mentions Ragatha's arrival, hinting at how hard it was for her to adjust. At the time, it felt like a throwaway line. Now, it feels like foreshadowing. And interestingly enough, Kinger is the only other character seen alongside Ragatha in these early scenes. That can't be accidental. If episode 8 is revisiting the past, Kinger being there makes perfect sense. He's one of the oldest residents of the circus. He remembers things others don't, and then there's the distortion, that warped, glitched effect visible in some of the leaked frames. This isn't new for the show, but the way it's being used here feels different. It's heavier, more intentional. In animation, that kind of visual distortion is often used to represent memories, fractured timelines, or moments where reality itself is unstable. If episode 8 is exploring Ragatha's past, or replaying events through her perspective, that distortion suddenly becomes a clue instead of just a style choice. So already, just from these early scenes alone, episode 8 feels different, more personal, more serious. It's not just pushing the plot forward, it's digging backward, asking where these characters came from, and what they had to survive before becoming who they are now. And if that's true, then what we're about to see might completely change how we view Ragatha and the circus itself. And this is only the beginning. If episode 8 really is opening the door to the past, then the next wave of early scenes makes everything even more intense. Because once you start comparing these images frame by frame with older episodes, it becomes clear the show isn't just referencing earlier moments, it's recreating them. And that's where the theory of flashbacks or something even stranger starts to feel almost unavoidable. One particular early frame has been driving fans crazy. It shows Ragatha standing in a familiar hallway, her posture tense, her expression unreadable. At first, it looks like a normal circus interior shot. But when people went back and matched it with a scene from the pilot episode, the resemblance was almost perfect. Same walls, same lighting, same angle. The only difference is that in the pilot, Pomni was the one standing there, not Ragatha. That kind of visual parallel doesn't happen by accident. The show is deliberately placing Ragatha into moments that originally belonged to Pomni. And that raises a disturbing possibility. What if episode 8 is showing us that these characters didn't just arrive randomly, one after another? What if their experiences are connected in ways we haven't understood yet? If Ragatha went through something similar to Pomni's arrival, it would explain so much about her personality, her patience, her optimism, her constant need to reassure others. Maybe she's not just being kind, maybe she remembers exactly how terrifying those first moments are. This idea becomes even stronger when you look at how episode 7 was structured. That episode was filled with subtle references to memory, repetition, and the weight of the past. Characters talked about things they barely understood. Emotions surfaced without clear explanations. It felt like the calm before something heavy. And now episode 8 appears to be paying that off by literally taking us backward, showing us events we've only heard about or scenes we thought we already understood. Some fans have gone even further, suggesting that this isn't just flashbacks, but some form of time manipulation inside the circus. And while that might sound extreme, the digital circus world has never followed normal rules. Reality bends, logic breaks, time feeling unstable wouldn't be a stretch at all. Especially when you consider the repeated visual distortions in these early scenes. The glitches don't feel random, they appear strongest around Ragatha, as if the environment itself is reacting to her presence. Then there's Kane, or more specifically, what's missing? In most of these early episode 8 scenes, Kane is either absent or pushed to the background. That's unusual. He's usually front and center, controlling the tone, the rules, the chaos. But if episode 8 is focused on memories or the circus's history, it makes sense that Kane would fade away. Because memories aren't something he can fully control, they belong to the characters. Another detail people noticed is the emotional shift in Ragatha's expressions across these scenes. We've always known her as the emotional anchor of the group, calm, supportive, almost unbreakable. But in these images, she looks vulnerable, confused, almost lost. It's like we're seeing her before she learned how to cope, before she became the version of herself everyone relies on. And that's heartbreaking, because it suggests that her positivity might be something she built to survive, not something that came naturally. Meanwhile, Pomni's presence in these early scenes feels different too. That shot of her at the exit door keeps coming back into the conversation, not because of action, but because of stillness. She's not trying to escape in a dramatic way. She's thinking, considering, and if episode 8 is weaving together past and present, Pomni standing at that door could be mirroring Ragatha's first realization. That escape might not be possible, or worse, that leaving comes with a cost. All of this starts to paint a much darker picture of the circus, not as a random prison, but as a place that repeats itself. New arrivals walking the same paths, standing in the same rooms, feeling the same fear, over and over again. And if that's true, then episode 8 isn't just revealing Ragatha's past. It's exposing a cycle, one that no one has been able to break yet. And the deeper we look, the harder it becomes to believe that any of this is coincidence. The framing, the callbacks, the emotional focus on Ragatha, everything points toward episode 8 being designed to make us question what we think we know about time, memory, and identity inside the digital circus. Because once you realize the past isn't gone, it's still happening. And that realization changes everything. As more early information surfaces, the focus starts shifting from what we're seeing to why we're seeing it now. Because episode 8 doesn't just feel like a continuation of the story, it feels like the moment the show decides to explain itself. And when you look closely at the details lining up across these early scenes, it becomes clear that the digital circus is finally ready to expose its own history. One of the strongest clues comes from the setting itself. Nearly every confirmed early scene takes place inside the main circus, not a new adventure, not a wild external environment, just the familiar, enclosed space the characters live in every day. That's important. When a story wants to slow down and reflect, it returns to its core location, and episode 8 seems to be doing exactly that. It's pulling everyone back to the heart of the circus, forcing both the characters and the audience to confront what this place really is. This lines up perfectly with Kane's behavior over the last few episodes. In episode 6, his carefully planned adventures started falling apart. He gave up control and handed out weapons instead of narratives. In episode 7, he casually announced a day off and pushed everyone toward distractions rather than structure. That's not just comedy, that's a system breaking down. And when the person in control starts losing focus, it creates space for truths to surface. Episode 8 feels like the result of that breakdown. Now think about Ragatha's role in all of this. The early scenes don't show her reacting to an adventure, they show her remembering, processing, standing still while the world around her feels slightly out of sync. That suggests episode 8 may not rely on traditional storytelling at all. Instead of forward motion, we might be getting emotional excavation, layers being peeled back, moments revisited from a completely different perspective. And if the show is revisiting its own beginning, that has serious implications. Because the pilot episode was chaotic, confusing, and overwhelming by design, we experienced it through Pomni's panic. But what if Ragatha's arrival was just as traumatic, only quieter? What if she didn't scream or run, but instead internalized everything? That would explain why she's become the emotional glue of the group. She learned early on that staying positive wasn't optional, it was survival. There's also something unsettling about how familiar everything looks in these early scenes. The same rooms, the same angles, the same positions. The circus hasn't changed. Time hasn't healed it, it's just been waiting. That creates a sense that the characters aren't moving forward so much as they're looping, and episode 8 might be the first time someone becomes aware of that loop. Another overlooked detail is how quiet these scenes feel. There's no chaos implied, no exaggerated expressions, no obvious punchlines. That's a huge tonal shift for the show. Silence in the amazing digital circus is rare, and when it appears, it usually means something is very wrong. Episode 8 appears to lean into that silence, using it to create tension instead of humor. And then there's the emotional weight. If episode 8 really is showing Ragatha's early days, then we're about to see her before she became strong, before she learned how to smile through fear, before she knew how to comfort others while hurting herself. That kind of vulnerability could easily make this the most emotionally heavy episode of the series so far. Not because of shock, but because of recognition. This also reframes how we view the rest of the cast. If Ragatha has been carrying the emotional burden for so long, what does that say about the others? How much have they relied on her without realizing it? And what happens if episode 8 forces her to confront memories she's been burying? The balance of the group could shift completely. At the same time, Pomni's journey continues to run parallel. Her confusion in episode 1, her fear in episode 7, and now her quiet moment at the exit door in these early scenes. It all mirrors what Ragatha may have gone through years earlier. Almost like the circus is replaying the same story with a new character, hoping for a different outcome. That's what makes episode 8 feel so dangerous, because once a story starts repeating itself, the only way forward is to break the pattern. And breaking patterns inside the digital circus has never ended well. So the question isn't just what episode 8 will show us, it's what it will force the characters to remember. By the time you put all these early scenes together, a chilling idea starts to take shape. Episode 8 may not just be revealing the past, it may be testing the characters by making them relive it. And that's where the emotional stakes rise sharply. Because memory inside the digital circus has never been safe, it's fragile, unstable, and often dangerous. One of the most unsettling details people keep overlooking is how deliberate the framing of Ragatha is in these early scenes. She's often centered, isolated, the world around her looks slightly off, like it hasn't fully loaded yet. That visual language usually means one thing in animation. We're not watching the present, we're watching a moment being reconstructed, either through memory, simulation, or something the circus itself is forcing her to experience. And that idea changes the tone of episode 8 completely. If the circus can replay moments from the past, then it's not just a prison. It's an archive, a place that stores emotional data, every rival, every breakdown, every realization that escape might not be possible. And Ragatha's story might be one of the oldest entries in that archive. The reason we're seeing it now could be because something in the system is malfunctioning, or worse, because someone is finally asking the right questions. That brings us back to Kane. His increasing instability over the last few episodes no longer feels random. If he's losing control over the structure of the circus, then suppressed memories resurfacing would make sense. He can create adventures, he can rewrite environments. But memory is harder to contain, and episode 8 may be showing us the limits of his power. Not through confrontation, but through exposure. There's also a quiet fear underlying all of this. If Ragatha is being forced to revisit her rival, then she's being reminded of a version of herself she's worked hard to forget. The confusion, the fear, The moment she realized there was no easy way out, that's not just painful. That's destabilizing because her entire role in the group is built on emotional control. Take that away and the group loses its anchor. Meanwhile, Pomni's position at the exit door starts to feel symbolic rather than literal. If episode 8 is blending timelines, then that scene might not be about her escaping at all. It might be showing her standing where Ragatha once stood, faced with the same impossible choice. Do you keep hoping for a way out, or do you adapt to survive? That parallel is terrifying. Because we already know what choice Ragatha made, and then there's the issue of truth. If episode 8 is revealing the circus's past, then it's also exposing how much the characters don't know about their own existence. How many memories have been softened? How many details have been erased? The circus presents itself as chaotic and silly on the surface. But these early scenes suggest something far more calculated beneath it all. A system that repeats patterns and watches how its inhabitants respond. Another reason episode 8 feels so heavy is because it doesn't seem interested in spectacle. There are no hints of large-scale chaos or exaggerated danger in the early footage. Instead, the threat feels internal, emotional, psychological, and that's far more disturbing. Because you can't fight a memory, you can't outrun your own past. Especially in a place that refuses to let anything truly disappear. If Ragatha does confront her past in episode 8, it could finally explain why she's stayed so hopeful for so long. Not because she believes escape is guaranteed, but because she knows what happens when you give up. That kind of strength doesn't come from optimism, it comes from endurance. And seeing that endurance tested could be devastating. By this point, episode 8 no longer feels like a regular episode, it feels like a reckoning for Ragatha, for Pomni, and for the circus itself, because once memories start resurfacing, there's no going back to ignorance. The characters will have to live with what they learn and whatever the circus has been hiding. Episode 8 looks ready to bring it into the light, and when episode 8 finally reaches its end, it may not leave us with answers, but with feelings we can't shake. Because if all these early scenes are pointing toward one truth, it's that the amazing digital circus is no longer just telling a story about survival. It's telling a story about what survival costs. Ragatha's journey, if fully revealed, could become the emotional core of the entire series. For so long, she's been the one holding everyone together, smiling when things fall apart, comforting others while ignoring her own pain. But episode 8 looks like the moment where that quiet strength is finally acknowledged, where we see the fear she carried, the confusion she buried, and the version of herself that had no idea how to cope with being trapped. And once you see that, you can't look at her the same way again. This also reframes Pomni's story in a powerful way. Her panic, her desperation, her constant search for meaning doesn't feel isolated anymore. It feels inherited, like she's walking a path someone else already walked and barely survived. That exit door she stands in front of may not represent freedom at all. It might represent the moment every character reaches when they realize escape isn't just about leaving the circus, it's about deciding who you become if you can't. Episode 8 feels like it's asking uncomfortable questions. How many people have come through the circus before? How many broke down quietly? How many adapted by becoming what others needed them to be? And how much of that history has been hidden behind jokes, colors, and chaos? The early scenes suggest the circus remembers everything even when the characters try not to. If this really is a turning point, then nothing after episode 8 will feel the same. The circus won't just be a strange digital world anymore, it'll be a place shaped by loss, repetition, and unresolved pain. A place where every smile has a backstory, and every cheerful moment hides something darker underneath. And that's what makes this episode feel so important. Not because of what it shows, but because of what it forces us to feel. We're not just watching a mystery unfold anymore. We're watching characters confront who they were before they learned how to survive. And that kind of story stays with you long after the episode ends. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think these early scenes are really telling us? Are we about to see Ragatha's true origin? Is the circus repeating the same cycle over and over again? And do you think Pomni will make a different choice when she reaches the same crossroads? Drop your theories in the comments below because this episode has everyone talking. If this breakdown helped you see episode 8 in a new way, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. I'll be breaking down every new leak, every official teaser, and every hidden detail as soon as it drops. This story is moving fast, and episode 8 could change everything. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive. Whatever the digital circus is about to reveal, we'll be watching it together.